I believe we are live on everything YouTube, Riverside, everything else. So it's me, Peter Bell, producer of Sons of Patriarchy, Sarah Bader, co-producer of Sons of Patriarchy, and we have Emilie Dye. So thanks for coming on back to the series, not coming on.
Thanks
back
for
to the
having me.
series.
It's good to be back.
Yep, that's we last talked July of last year. I was trying to think of when we last talked.
It's been a bit. Yeah, a lot's happened. I mean, your podcast has blown up for one.
But yeah, podcast is blowing up. A certain someone's been on Wall Street Journal,
Yeah.
um, which is why we're
Front
having
page.
that's that front page. I remember when we were told this would be a front page story, and I was like, I'll believe it when I see it. And then I saw it on the front page, and I was like, well, there you go. This is front page story now. Doug Wilson is now front page on the Wall Street Journal, but then so is Emilie Dye.
Yep, exactly. I got my quotes in there.
There you go. All right, so and then Sarah, this is your second time on the series now, even though you're co-producer and technically own Sons of Patriarchy.
Yeah, so second time, yeah, for our own podcast recording. Yep. Yep. So that is kind of weird.
Yep. And I think, if I have the dates correct, your episode, because it was something like "Why Does Sons of Patriarchy Exist?" I think was the title of it. Yours fell the Saturday right after Emilie Dye's episode went out too.
Yeah.
It was Groomed to Submit, and then 2 days later, it was "Why Does Sons of Patriarchy Exist?" with Sarah Bader. So now
Well, I think like when Emily and I met, so when was that? Was that like in 2021, 2022?
I think
we sat down?
it would have been, yeah. Yeah, we would have met in person. It would have been during COVID, wasn't it? When I did that visit right before the
Yeah.
Delta variant.
Yes. So I don't know about you, but I sat down and there was just this moment of like kind of looking at each other going, oh God, I think he has a type. I don't know about you.
You had the red hair, the red curly hair.
Yeah. So it was just like,
Yeah.
we were similar. I was like, I don't. That was a lot.
That was
so
uncomfortable realizing that.
Yeah.
We both looked at each other and we're like,
So our first meeting was really awkward, and I mean it was good, but it took us a while to get through the like. Oh, we both know a lot of things.
Yeah, it did. It was good though. It was good to find a kindred spirit.
Yeah. And just to see, I mean, your story. So like Helen is on sabbatical right now for the podcast, but she wanted to say hi and just give you a shout out as well. So,
That makes me happy.
like there are people all the time talk about how your story has inspired them, and
Yep.
I think one of the things that really
both
was
their
amazing
story,
to
and then
me.
also like how bold and courageous you are in telling it, and not letting people, Doug or anybody else, like cast aspersions on it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have also come forward and said, I've asked really good questions like, what is grooming? And so there's been also that response of
Yeah.
an education opportunity where they may not have otherwise understood the implications of what Nance was up to.
That's
And
true.
that's super important because it's subtle. It's not as everyone expects it to be very direct in your face, but it's not. I mean, people have been saying this about rape for a while, but sexual abuse is very similar. It's very subtle. It takes time. It's, yeah.
And it's from
Oh, and
somebody
the famous cat.
The famous cat, it's not a goat,
That's right.
everyone.
I
That's the one correction I would like to make to the record. He is a cat.
That's right. I forgot how many comments we got on that episode. They're like, "What is that
This
thing in the
explains
background?"
so much. Oh my gosh. That face says it all.
Yeah. Siamese apparently are known for being quite loud, and he's
Yeah, we got
he's
my
come to
family had
stardom.
3.
You see, I thought it was endearing, and people like expected us to be like real professional and suited up and everything tightly edited. And I was like, I don't think you understand our brand here. Our brand is like raw and unfiltered, and cat noises in the background. That's
Yeah.
what we do.
Yeah, Shimmy's a part of it.
There
He
you
wants
go.
to be here.
Forever.
I was
Yeah.
telling Sarah, the other Sarah, I was like, no, we do anything, the cat's got to be there. He's any sort of video.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's not fighting it. Yeah, that's it. Maybe to provide a little bit of an update before. So we asked Emily to come on, both as part of the Wall Street Journal stuff, connecting her with Aaron Zittner, who is the journalist over there. We're very, very, very thankful for Wall Street Journal making this a lot more public than it's ever been before. But also, like, we want to hear from Emily to have her story not retold kind of in full as she's done over and over and over and over again, because that can be tiring. And there's some sense, I'm sure, of ownership. Like, you want to keep telling us so people hear it.
Yeah.
But we'll ask some questions that I think are on some people's minds after reading the stories. Like, why didn't Emily do this, or why did she do this? And hopefully having that as not just a model, but as a story of, like what you just said, that abuse is not a very clear black and white. It starts off really subtly, and it shifts and morphs, and it leaves you sometimes with a lack of agency, and you're not really sure what to do with it or how to respond. But I wanted to give people a little bit of an update, because we haven't really updated people on season 1, but maybe just on this episode. This is I think it's our second most listened to episode ever, was Groomed to Submit. Our most listened to was the Dumais war, or the war on the Eve jellyfish, which is at like 140,000 downloads, something like that. And yours passed 100,000 mark like a week or two ago.
Oh, wow. I didn't
So
know that.
you're in 105, 110,000. So 110,000 people have listened to a cat meow throughout.
Shimmy's
throughout the
famous.
episode.
He is an influencer cat.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We may get to hear him again today. We'll see.
That's right. Yeah, as long as she's being pet. That's like my dog. As long as they're being pet, they make little noise and don't move as much. But the second they're not being pet, they want your attention no matter what.
Oh, yeah, he's demanding. He needs to be part of the conversation.
That's right. Yep. So we have the Wall Street Journal article linked in the show notes if people want to click on that. I didn't, and I should have, and I could put it in the comments, the episode that you're on. So again, Groomed to Submit, Abuse in the CRAC, Part 2. But if you can, as brief or as long as you want, just kind of go through some of the bullet points of your story, what happened to you, response, who the major characters are in this story, just for people who either haven't heard the story before or they have, but it's still a little bit fuzzy. And the Wall Street Journal, and we won't talk about kind of what's coming next for anything necessarily, but it was a small snippet. It kind of had to be, but it's not a small snippet. But if we can expand on that a little bit too. So yeah, just a summary of your story, and then we'll go after that.
Yeah, so I went to Logos School for my high school experience. So I was there from 9th grade to 12th grade. Lots of things about Logos. It's been interesting thinking back on that experience and hearing other people's stories and understanding grooming better myself. There was definitely weird dynamics with Tom Garfield would like give all of the girls that were his favorites back rubs. So it was very normal for the older men in the school to
Which shouldn't be normal, but it was normal.
No, it shouldn't be. And it was something like I had seen it happen to other girls. And so it was just like when he started doing the same to me, I was like, okay, this is uncomfortable, but like this is what happens in this school. Just kind of looking over my shoulder, prepared. So then when Nance began grooming me when I was just after I turned 17, in my junior year is when that dynamic began. It didn't feel entirely out of the ordinary, and I definitely wasn't aware of what it was at first. So Nance was my church doctrine and rhetoric teacher junior year of high school, and that year I had a free period it would have been Tuesday, Thursdays. And so I would go and sit in his classroom and study because it was quiet. And I was an avid student, wanted to get good grades, trying to get into uni, the whole thing. So I was studying in his classroom, and he allowed me to do that. And over the course of that, we became friends. And that dynamic became closer and closer. And by the end of my first semester, he was like, he'd make excuses to touch me.
First semester of junior year, right?
Junior year. So I turned 17 right at the beginning of my junior year.
Okay. And then how old
Began
is
his
Jim Nance
class.
at this time?
He's 53, so it's 53 to 17.
Got it.
And I was younger than all of his children.
Oh, so he was married with kids and 53 years old.
Married with kids and grandkids, actually.
He's a grandpa.
Yes. He became a grandfather while this was going on. His oldest daughter had children. His youngest son was the class above me, or 2 classes above me, I believe. So massive age gap.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're not saying
Would
it's
have been-
better if it's like a 25-year-old teacher, but there is something particularly heinous about a man in his 50s going after a 17-year-old girl.
I think the thing that's been like odd about this after the fact is it was presented at the time as I had an infatuation with him and I seduced him as the 17-year-old studying in his classroom, when like my motivations were really obvious. My motivations were like I didn't want to be around the elementary students while I was studying so I could focus on my homework. Like that was my main motivation. But it's been presented as I had a crush on him, which if you look at him and you look at me, I don't think that this like little 17-year-old girl had a crush on the like grandpa that's overweight with receding hair, gray hair. No. All of I can tell you who my crushes were in high school, and they were all boys my own age.
Probably, I was
Believe
about
it
to
or
say,
not.
probably all high schoolers, yeah.
Yeah, they were all high schoolers, but I was much too scared to talk to them. Yeah, so.
Well, being a Logos kid's like teacher's favorite, that's really, I'm sure. I remember that from your episode, and I remember that being really a big thing in the culture at Logos. And so I'm sure that played into.
Yeah, I mean, that's big in every school, too. And especially, I'm guessing if you're at a small Christian school with very tight-knit doctrine and everything else and very tightly knit gender roles and stuff, then things can get a little weird.
And the hierarchy was very clear. Like he was a church elder, and
so he was an elder at this time, too.
He was an elder at this time, and he was very respected. And so being in with Nance like was helpful for me as a student in that within the church when I was attending the church, it was like, oh, I'm more of the cool Christchurch people, because it was very clear those dynamics between the non-Christchurch students and the Christchurch students. That was very obvious. Everyone knew who went to which church. And if your parents were higher up in the church hierarchy, then you were higher up in the school hierarchy. And so it was like I'd been accepted in some ways. Like I'm approved of by a church elder, therefore like I'm
a doctrine teacher who's also
the doctrine teacher.
And
I spent a lot of time asking him spiritual questions, and I think that's where because I viewed him as a spiritual mentor, because he's obviously this authority figure.
He's Mr. Godly himself. Like, why wouldn't you want to listen to him?
Exactly. And we'd finish the church doctrine class, and I would sometimes stay back and ask him questions, because I was super serious about my faith, and I wanted to learn and was really engaged in that way. And so I spent a lot of time talking to him about spiritual matters and looking to him for advice on spiritual matters. And so that was kind of the way I saw the dynamic initially. And through my junior year, I did notice things starting to get weird. Like there's the side hug dynamic that I think I might have explained on the first podcast. It's so creepy.
Yeah. that is a very like quintessential Christian school church like hug between guys and girls, like quintessential.
You can't do a normal hug.
No, you can't go front to front. No, that's not a thing.
No, that would be inappropriate. Like, Which is so funny now, like in Australia, where it's a much more affectionate culture, and so you get the like the kisses on the cheek is very
Oh yeah, I'm
normal.
I'm married to a Mexican. I know, like I'm very used
Yeah.
to affectionate culture now. Yes, but in white conservative Christian circles, affection is like no, we can't do that stuff until you're married.
Yeah, exactly. So I still remember like the first full frontal hug, and it lasted
First of all,
way.
frontal-
The full frontal.
Here.
It's a
sorry,
phrase that we'll need
it's
to
just
use. The full
when I
frontal hug.
when I hear it from somebody else, it's just it hits a little different.
But it definitely lasted longer than it should have.
Okay.
And I remember being like, okay, is he gonna let go of me now?
Oh,
And he finally let go of me. I was like, that was weird. Moving on. And then in that second semester of my junior year is when things really ramped up. That was when he started messaging me on Facebook Messenger, and we were
Okay.
messaging back and forth. He took a photo of me in science class that I feel like I don't think people know that the photo was taken by him because I look like such a child. It's me with one of those like those electric ball things.
Oh, that's
that,
the
like,
photo
yeah,
he
we've
took of
seen
you.
that picture.
Yeah.
yeah,
Wait,
that
that's
picture
he
with
took
the long
that
hair.
picture?
Nance
Oh my
took that
gosh.
picture.
Oh my gosh. That makes that
Yeah.
picture
And you
not
look
okay.
12
Wow.
in that picture.
Yeah, I look very
Oh,
young because I
wow.
was a very young 17 and very young 18. Like I didn't know what a vagina was, did not know the term, had never had sex ed. I learned about periods from the Diary of Anne Frank. Like I had
And Anne Frank
a
was 12 when she
very
wrote that. 12 to 14.
yeah, I had a very, very sheltered understanding of sex and all that. I remember like talking to a friend and she was trying to explain to me because we were talking about like Les Miserables and I was like, oh yeah, I love that book. And like, obviously I've got like a redacted version and I'm not understanding like the whole prostitution thing. And then finally she has to explain it to me directly. She's like, prostitutions and they were selling like sex. And I was like, oh, and like I was confused. Like I was more sheltered, I think, than I was sheltered as a general 17-year-old. I was more sheltered than a lot of other kids, even at Logos, because I was so scared. I was scared of everything to do with sex, and I was scared of Googling things because I felt like I would be doing something wrong. I very much took on the indoctrination of fear around sexuality, and so I restricted myself from finding that information as well.
And do you think Jim like he sensed that about you because you're very, very smart, you're very, very clever and not an easy target, but if he had to have seen something, I wonder what is that.
Yeah, I was very naive, and I think that was probably obvious. I was, my parents, like, we live far away, and so that commute was difficult.
True. Yeah.
And
A lot of
I was
weaknesses.
yeah, I was often on my own with my two little sisters, keeping an eye on them. And yeah, my parents, like, they tried to be there and tried to engage, but it was very difficult with the distance. So it was very much just my sisters and I. We often stayed up in Moscow by ourselves, like with various families, just because, like, if the weather was bad, we'd crash with friends. Like, there's some lovely families, and some, like, one of my closest friends today is one of those people that, like, I crashed on her couch so many times. Well, in her bedroom, she had like a pull-out bed, trundle bed, and we like stayed at hers. She had older siblings who had like gone off to uni, and so we were often at their place. And they're the best. Like, love them to death. Um, but because of that, I was often like the three of us were like three kids bouncing around by ourselves in Moscow, Idaho, and I think that presented an image of vulnerability to Nance. Like, we didn't have an adult supervisor a lot of the time, and we didn't have an adult nearby, and we were kind of independent. And I was also
Well, what's
incredibly
shocking is that
naive.
the school was supervising, and there's that ongoing narrative, and I can't make it fit in my head, and maybe it's just, I just can't get past the fact that one, this started happening at Logos, so no matter what anyone says, he was your teacher,
Yep.
Yeah.
and it was wildly inappropriate and then criminal. I mean, it's very clear to me. So
Yes.
that part of it, I don't understand people asking about your story or questioning your story, but then also the response we saw from Logos, from Wilson, from Nancy. they all started addressing the situation right away, even Nance. And so
Yeah.
if you were making it up, why would they have ever even
Even
immediately
just
jumped on
like the
this?
consensual stuff that you were the one coming on to Nance, and therefore that made his actions, while reprehensible, like understandable because she was coming on to him.
Yeah, and I found that narrative so odd that that was the choice that they went with. The whole thing is they put it on me, and I think that's very common in the doctrine at the school and at the church. The onus is on women to manage the desires of men, not on men to be respectful of women.
And it sounds like it even goes down to if you're a teenager, if you're a young girl, you're responsible, like you said, for a 53-year-old's sexual appetite.
Yeah, and I remember having like this weird experience of staying over at a friend's house, and this friend, her father was also, I don't remember if he was a deacon or an elder at Christ Church, but obviously very much in the Christ Church leadership. And I'd worn like pajamas that were, I felt like they were standard kid pajamas. Um, like it was a tank top and a pair of shorts. I loved the shorts because they were covered in smiley faces. And my friend approached me after, like the next day at school, or a couple days later at school, because like her dad had spoken to her and basically said I wasn't allowed to spend the night at her house anymore because my outfit was too revealing. My pajamas were too revealing, and her father was didn't want to see me in that, and it was like inappropriate for him to be viewing me, and it was causing him to have inappropriate thoughts or inappropriate desires or something. Awful thing to make
You
your
better
daughter have
poker
that
face.
conversation with her friend. Like,
Oh my
just
Lord.
disgusting. And I don't remember how old I was. I would have been somewhere probably 15, 14, 15. Like, I remember when I got the pajamas, they were like a gift from a friend in 7th grade. So I wouldn't have been older than 15 because I would have grown out of them by then. Like, I was, it was just, and that was the understanding of, okay, this 14-year-old, 15-year-old kid is the one that has to
Yeah.
make sure that some 60-year-old man isn't having sexual thoughts about her because she wore cute floral smiley face shorts.
It just sounds to me like the people who, quote unquote, made it out okay are not the norm. I mean, if we look back,
Yeah.
like I can remember instances with Garfield too, where I think I was just too young, which I'm really
Yeah.
grateful for.
Yeah, and we have
I,
more
I was
stories
really
from
too young.
Garfield too in the series as well.
And it just amazes me that, this went on. And I want to ask people in this area specifically, and I just kind of, maybe you can weigh in on this, like what are parents thinking letting their daughters go to these schools? I cannot imagine, knowing what I know about Logos, even just going back there last year to go to church, it was nauseating. Don't do that.
Yeah, oh God. I don't go to the town.
It was not okay. But just like, do they not understand that a teacher at that school, like their daughter may be standing in front of the same bookshelf that Jim Nance molested you against? Like how how do parents justify this, and what would you say to that? I mean, are their daughters safe? Because is it being dealt with, you think, any differently?
Oh, I don't think it is. I would be shocked if they're actually approaching this differently.
It'd be one thing if they rectified it, but as far as we know, he just got shipped off into a different department.
Yeah, and I think if you're actually going to solve something like this, you have to take accountability and take responsibility and say,
Yeah.
no, something awful happened at our school, and we are going to fix that. And I think that's the first step until they're willing to acknowledge that they had culpability and that they acted very badly and that they chose not to protect me. They chose to protect Nance. I don't see them creating an environment that would be safe for young girls. I will say, like, my parents, even like then Natalie Greenfield, now Angel, she, like, her story was out, like her story ended up coming out while,
That's right.
like, towards the end of my time at Logos.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something that my parents even knew about. Like, and my sister stayed in that school. My youngest sister went all the way through and graduated at Logos and then went to NSA.
Oh.
And yeah, there was no knowledge. And she was boarding with the Lloyds, which is it's
yeah.
a whole other can of worms.
We know about that can of worms, yep.
We know about that can of worms.
Never ending.
It's never ending. And yeah, so my parents were just so oblivious. And I wonder how many parents are taking their kids to that school and they're not coming across. I'm hoping now with the publicity and with what you're
Yeah.
doing and with all of the people speaking out that parents will become more aware and be like, actually, no, we should research this more thoroughly. But I don't think my parents had any idea. Like it was very much brushed
I
under the
just
rug.
want to note that, like, for the record, Jim Nance, Emilie Dye is on the front page of Wall Street Journal.
That's right. And he's
And I
not.
have other words I'm not going to say because we're
Yep.
live.
Yep.
But like that, mad respect. You've been really
Yeah.
brave.
So and we won't go into everything because people can go into the episode to get even more stuff. But that's kind of that's what leads into when he starts pursuing you sexually.
Yeah.
We've heard from people is like, why didn't she just stop it? Why didn't that for them it was like it had to have been consensual, or at least maybe it was a little bit wrong, but she's 18, she can make her own decisions, she can do all this stuff. The question we get, I'm sure you've gotten or you've seen online, and we see this all the time, and those who comment know who you are, who comment these things. I won't say their names on this, but they'll say, yeah, it was consensual. Why didn't she yell? Why didn't she tell the administration? Why didn't she tell the faculty? Why didn't she tell her parents? Why didn't she tell Doug Wilson? Although some of these things eventually do start coming out.
Yeah.
But when he does start, he crossed the line way before, but when it's like a physical cross the line, when it's like, hey, this is what he's going for, a lot of people ask, why didn't you stop it?
Yeah, well, I didn't want to believe it, and I was confused by it, and it was the cognitive dissonance of this man is a spiritual man, this man is a leader in the church, this man is my teacher, he's this authority. I've been told to respect him. We've been told to submit to men, to submit to men in authority, to church leaders. I couldn't quite balance that cognitive dissonance of what was happening and what I believed to be wrong. I was like, this seems wrong, but this person's doing it. So is it wrong? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm the one that's causing it. And then there was the sense of culpability of I'm also here and participating in this. It's my fault. The psychology of that is quite complex, and it does trap you. And particularly later, and I think this is something that I've really struggled myself to come to terms with, is like, when he reached back out, why did I accept that? So,
because that was a few years after all this stuff happened, right?
I guess we didn't finish the summary of junior year. It begins to escalate. He's grooming me.
Yep.
Senior year, it's reported to the school in September by another parent who's also the school secretary. She sees his interactions with me and goes, uh-oh, like this is bad. Reports it.
So it's clear to her that this is happening.
Yes, and she's just an outside. She saw me engaging with him over the course of a trip, which would have lasted a few days.
Yep.
And so she saw the way he was engaging with me on that trip and went, that's inappropriate, and then spoke to the school. And the school spoke to Nance, did not speak to me, did not speak to my parents, did not do anything at that time. And so it just, at that point, Nance used that as a means of enforcing secrecy.
Yeah. And it can come across to those who are, like you said, unaware of these dynamics, like that's consensual. The fact that you didn't say anything meant that even if you didn't want this necessarily, like you weren't against it, and that he's like, you either pushed him into this or seduced him into this, but that you weren't talking to people when the person noticed it, that it was like your quiet yes, not your like, oh shit, I don't know what's happening to me.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's not how consent works, but
no,
that's how it's presented.
To be clear, for those who are listening, I'm not saying any of this stuff that like this is what I really feel how it's consent, but that's how we hear this construed all the time. That like your quietness in the face of it was, you're like, well, I guess I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and I still remember the first time he groped me, and it would have been my junior year, so I would have been 17. Like clarifying that I was underage when he first started touching me sexually, I just
And it
think
wouldn't
that
even matter if you were like 18 because he's still a married man with kids. This is still, even according to Christ Church, as
teacher.
the elder of the church, and as a teacher at Logos, that this
yeah,
is
the power dynamics
Yeah.
alone. Yeah. But I just went. I stood in my locker and I couldn't like. I just like couldn't quite come to terms with it. And I remember just standing there for an exceedingly long amount of time, trying to make heads or tails of it and be like, did this happen? Like, did I imagine? Like, trying to figure out some way that I could be okay with what had happened. And I ended up not knowing what to do, not knowing how to think about it, just didn't. I just was like, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to do nothing. And
And even if you went to somebody, they're all, like you said, they're likely gonna either say like, "Well, Nance would never do this stuff," or maybe you're misinterpreting this, or this is it's not actually that bad. He's just a really friendly person.
yeah, like, oh, it was an accident. Like, it could have been. I don't think that me saying anything in that time would have actually been helpful. Like, I don't know if that would have changed anything.
Clearly, it was known.
Yeah, clearly
mean,
not. Clearly, when another person at the school, when an administrator at the school says there's a problem, they chose to also ignore the problem and told
Yeah.
Nance to just be more careful, pretty much.
Exactly.
And
Hide it better.
hide it better. And that was the first point where I realized, I think when that report was made, I was like, oh, I'm in deep. Like, because I had been justifying in my head of pretending that the more overt sexual stuff hadn't happened. I was just like disassociating from it. And yeah, so on one hand, I was doing that. And on the other hand, yeah, I was just saying, oh, it's okay because he's a leader and I need to trust. He's smarter than me. He's older than me. He's wiser than me. All the things.
He's doing this for some reason. I just don't know.
There must be some reason. And so I reverted to him being the authority and following his guidance on this. And so I didn't really know, I hadn't come to terms with it being wrong or come to terms with what was actually happening or the fact that I was being abused or that I was being groomed. And we're talking about people listening to these podcasts and being like, oh, now I understand grooming better. Like, these are adults that are like, oh, now I'm getting this. I was 17. I did not understand grooming.
Yeah,
It wasn't a term I'd even heard before.
If
like,
you hadn't heard about sex or vaginas before this, like, why would you know anything about grooming?
Well,
Yeah,
then look at
exactly.
all the other male teachers. I mean, you had, like you had mentioned in the first podcast, I think that most people now have heard Tom Garfield, friends with Jim Nance. And I mean, it was so normal, even in my day, because I'm a little bit older, and in my strata of experience with them, it was the same thing, you know? And
Yeah.
it's just, so if that's what's normal at the school, how did you stand a chance?
If you
it's
see other,
you were
like
set
you-
up for,
Like you started this, if you see other girls getting their backs rubbed, shoulders rubbed, touched, and then the same thing is happening to you, you're not looking at this like, well, this is different. This is weird. Why is this happening to me and nobody else? You're like, well, this
Yeah.
happens. It almost. I mean, I don't know this for if it's not happening to you, you start wondering what's wrong. But if it is happening to you, you're like, well, this is what
it's normal.
older men do to younger girls, I guess.
Yeah,
I just,
pretty much.
yeah, I just cannot imagine.
Yeah. And after that incident where where I did start to realize, oh, something might be wrong, it escalated. And it escalated because then it was that culpability of this is your fault.
Oh.
And that shame of you're going to ruin my marriage. You're going to get expelled. You're like,
Would he tell you this stuff?
oh, yeah. Yeah.
So he would tell
And,
you,
like-
like, in the middle of this, like, hey, you can't tell anybody because you'll ruin my marriage, you'll ruin my position, you'll ruin, like, my
Yeah.
kid. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and
This is-
I'm under the impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that kind of what the party line was coming from the other, as you went along, kind of everyone was saying, well, keep quiet or you're going to ruin his reputation, you're going to ruin the school.
Yeah.
I mean, I was calculating last night while I painted angrily, listening to your podcast episode, like, what is Emilie Dye's story worth? Because I've always wondered why the loyalty to Nance. Because like you, I find him unappealing in every way. So why this strange allowance for him? Because we know that he committed some atrocity in the 90s.
Yeah.
He has a history.
If he has
Yeah,
a history,
I'm not the first. It's very unlikely that yeah.
or
It's not
or
how
the
that
last
works.
apparently.
Or not
And
the last. No, absolutely not. I know that he had infatuations with other girls younger than me while that dynamic was going on.
as just, oh,
Yeah.
So
I
he's to go. So I mean, so while he's escalating, he's telling. I mean, he's ensnared you and said, hey, if you say anything to anybody, like I go down. Like you can't do this stuff. I mean,
yeah.
that's what's that like hearing that on your end?
Oh, I was terrified. I think I was just and ashamed and I felt guilty and it was these cases of me begging him for forgiveness and him saying that he forgave me.
Oh,
Him
you wait. So sorry. Hold on. You begging him for forgiveness.
correct. It was I remember one oh, there's the cat.
There you go. There's the sound.
is it a cat? Is it a cat?
Yeah. Is it a cat? It's a cat, not a goat. Um, he really light for a really dark topic. I remember
Yeah.
at one point, like after he had sexually assaulted me in the classroom against the bookshelf, that incident, him sitting me down and being like, "Well, don't you want to be pure for your husband?" Like,
What about his freaking wife?
yeah. And it was this like awful yeah, and I was like, I was I was shaking, sobbing my eyes out as one does. And he was like, well, like, don't you want to be pure? Like, look at what you're doing. Like, don't you want to
So he was telling you this stuff.
save yourself for marriage? Like, he was telling me all of this, and I'm just like bawling my eyes out, having just been sexually assaulted, bawling my eyes out to the man who sexually assaulted me. And then he's the one, he's like, I forgive you. It's okay. And then providing me comfort and giving me a hug and telling me it's okay, that I've been forgiven, God still loves me, that this is like, you just have to ask Jesus for forgiveness and their salvation and like, basically like do better in the future. And so I was just so topsy-turvy in this period where I did think genuinely it was my fault. And I knew that he was also culpable and we were in this together in some ways. And that created this space where he was the only person that I could talk to about this because I truly believe that if anyone else found out that like I was unlovable and I would be completely rejected from the community and isolated.
Well, that's what you were told.
And,
Yeah, if you have sex before marriage, if anything sexually happens to you, you're deflowered for your future husband.
yeah, I'm worthless essentially. It's all of the youth group, you're the spit in the cup that's been passed around to multiple guys.
I
Like,
don't believe you heard that stuff. Yeah.
so I just believed that like I was ruined. And so I kept it secret. And the only person I spoke to about it was Nance himself. And so he was the only source of comfort in the same way that he was the one that was causing all of the pain.
Oh.
Yeah, there's so much stuff. And so this goes further. And again, people, if you want more specific details, they can listen
Yeah.
to the previous podcast. Again, this is just stuff we've heard over and over again. And just so people hear it from you, that this continues. And I think people, rightly or wrongly, they're like, okay, this is sexual assault. This is abuse. There's a power dynamic. There's hierarchy. But why does she continue? Like, why does she allow this to go on and on and on? And now she's 18, and now it's quote unquote consensual between two consenting adults. Why doesn't she stop it? She knows this is wrong. Why doesn't she stop it?
Yeah. It's not like there's this magic thing that happens when you turn 18 where suddenly you have the maturity to be able to break away. And Nance knew, he knew about my age, and he knew there was an escalation as soon as my birthday took place. It became immediately more physical. Like where he groped me before, it was now he would grope me underneath my clothes. And there was a very clear, like he knew he was dancing around the border of the law there. And yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know how anyone would expect an 18-year-old to be able to walk. I mean, there's 18-year-olds that have different levels of maturity. I wasn't there.
Of course. Yeah, and you can't be blamed for where your maturity was at, because this is not on you. This is on Nance.
Yeah.
This is his problem to fix. Not, it shouldn't have been your problem to fix. When does you said that somebody had told administration and they only talked to Nance? When is it like? Is it then that it becomes really apparent, or when do Doug and everybody, like, kind of the elites, when did they become aware of, like, hey, this is going on?
So Doug was aware first.
Okay.
And I was telling Aaron Zittner from the Wall Street Journal.
Yep.
Doug walked in on Nance and I
Okay.
when I was 17 in Nance's classroom.
Oh, so this is before you're 18 years old, before the
Before I'm
quote unquote
18
age
years
of
old.
consent.
Doug opens the door to Nance's classroom and walks in on Nance and I alone together in his classroom. This would have been like April before, like, my junior year, and March, April, somewhere in that timeline, and sees us alone together. I don't exactly remember what was happening, but like Nance basically like pushed me away and stepped back. And the next day he was like, "You embarrassed me in front of my pastor." And that's how I met Doug Wilson.
Okay.
So,
Oh my God.
so then, like, Wilson walks in on the two of us together, him being inappropriate with me, and Nance goes, Emilie, meet Doug Wilson. Doug Wilson, meet Emilie. And that's how we met. So Wilson probably was the first person that probably should have noted something and should have asked questions of, hey, why are you alone being intimate
Yeah.
with this underage girl?
And let alone at this point, is you said Jim is he's an elder at Christ Church at this point?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's-
And that was right before a school board meeting because
Yeah. He's an elder at the church. He's a teacher at the school that Doug Wilson founded and is in some way, shape, or form associated with, still principal, whatever Doug's official title is or unofficial title is at Logos. So he's well connected with Jim. And
Yeah.
well connected with Doug.
Well, and everywhere, like I'm still downtown, Emily, and I see Jim regularly. Like, it's like he haunts me. He's everywhere.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, I don't know, do you ever think back and like wonder, like, what is that dynamic between Doug and Jim? If that was the kind of loyalty, like, what
It's
did
not the
Doug
first
see
time,
in Jim?
like you said, and it's not the last time. So what?
Yeah.
How
Like,
long
how
has Doug been
does-
covering up for Jim?
Yeah, how does Doug keep this dude around if he's doing this?
I don't understand it. I don't know if it's the boys' club, if it's some sort of weird friendship. I haven't, whether there's a tit for tat, whether Nance has got something on Doug, whether I don't know. That baffles me because I feel like with you and like with most rational people, we're like, well, you know that this person has acted very badly. You condemn them for your actions, and you don't protect them. Like most people, it would have been so much better for Wilson. It would have looked good for Wilson. I know he cares about his image and PR. If he had said that is unacceptable behavior and had reported it to the police back in 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
no.
that's when you meet Doug.
Yes.
When are you sure that Doug knows what's going on? That it's not just hey, that's Emilie Dye. It goes from that to there might be something going on between Jim and Emilie.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, maybe Wilson did have a conversation with Nance at that point. Maybe there was something. Maybe Nance is like, oh no, she was just in my classroom asking about a grade or something. I don't know whether there was some sort of thing there. I don't think that's likely. I know that one thing that Nancy Wilson had said to me when I was in counseling with her was that, her grandkids had commented on the fact that I had studied late in Nance's classroom and that was weird. Nobody had approached me about that. It wasn't weird. It shouldn't have been weird. And she was like, but like it was put on me as like I should have known better. Like this was I was asking for it by studying in the classroom of a male teacher as opposed to a female teacher. So maybe that was a red flag then. They were definitely aware that I had studied in his classroom, that I was alone with him well before that first report was made. The first report was made. I do not know if Wilson was looped in on that or not. I would hope so. I would assume so. But the only reason I know about that report is from Nance himself. So Nance is the one that told me that the report was made. My parents were not told. That's the only reason I know. So it could have just been the report was made to Tom Garfield, and Tom Garfield went to his mate Nance and was like, be better, be more careful. It could have actually gone further. I don't know. The point where I know that Wilson knew and absolutely should have taken action and was himself very much in the discussions, in the process, was in November 2024. Or not 2024, 2014. 10 years difference. 2014, November. I know for a fact that Wilson knew. Because
that's your junior senior year.
This is my senior year.
Okay.
And my mom had seen that there were text messages. I had told Nance that my mom had seen that there were text messages, and he then confessed and told the school that he was having he'd been texting me too much, or he was there was a flirtation. And
so that's what he confessed to.
That's what he confessed to. He confessed to a flirtation. And at no point has Nance ever confessed any more than he's been caught. He doesn't go and admit everything.
Yeah.
There's never been a point where he's volunteered information. They're acting like he's volunteering information. No. He got caught, and then he admitted to as little as he could possibly admit to.
Yeah.
And so as far as the Christian doctrine goes of confession and forgiveness and repentance, that's not there even by the Christian standards, let alone the secular standards of you should probably go report that to police. Not probably, you should go report that to police. At that point, Wilson knew. Wilson was very much instrumental in covering up the fact that it occurred, in brushing it under the rug. He had a meeting with my parents, told my parents that everything was good, everything was above board, nothing had happened. They didn't need to be worried. They didn't need to go to police. They were confident that it was just a flirtation. All is well. We've taken the appropriate action. Nance is being dismissed, but he wasn't really dismissed. He was asked to resign. That said, even after the initial information was given to the school, I was still in class with Nance, and I still took my final exams with Nance. And I remember he messed up my grade this time he was teaching calculus and physics. I can't remember if it was my calculus exam or my physics exam, but he messed up my grade. He gave me a 98 and I got 100% or something. And so I had walked in and was like, excuse me, as any type A student would, and got my grade fixed.
Here, I don't care about the 90 or about the 100. I got a freaking 98, and here's Emilie Dye. That shows you, like you said, you're not there for any other reason than academic. I need to get this shit done.
Yeah, and so I went and got and it was so. I remember standing there. It was the worst. And there wasn't any, let's have a substitute come in and proctor the exams. There wasn't any, and I think it should have been, he should have been immediately not allowed on campus. External investigation immediately.
At the very least, yeah.
At the very least, because it's dealing with students and potentially an underage student, potentially more than one student, it should have been police getting engaged immediately. That's what should have happened at that point. And it was not. It was Wilson telling my parents, oh, everything's okay. My parents trusting Wilson because, again, he's an authority. He's this godly man.
The pastor, yeah.
He's the pastor. And I was never asked proper questions. No one properly interviewed me. I was sat down in a room with Tom Garfield and both my parents. And Tom Garfield asked if Nance had ever kissed me. And Nance had not kissed me. That was one of the few things that he had not done.
Okay.
And I think that was intentional. I think that was so that Nance could say to people if they asked, I haven't even kissed her.
Huh. Oh my God.
So
he's not lying. He's just He's
Yeah.
playing with his words.
He's playing with his
Well,
words.
this is Jim Nance, so logic and, trickery
Yeah.
this is totally,
Well
yeah,
within his character that would be the way.
yes,
And
yeah,
I fully
yeah,
think that was orchestrated and purposeful. He did not kiss me so that he could say that. And
yeah.
even though he had, sexually assaulted me on multiple occasions beforehand. So,
So Doug knew. Doug should have reported it.
Hmm.
I mean, many times over at this point. Like there are many
yeah.
adults who have failed you. So to me, looking at this and having watched all this happen and knowing I also was young and naive.
And nobody asked you. Like they went
No.
with Jim, or they asked you the one question: Were you kissed? So you were, you weren't even sure. Like people, I mean, I'd imagine cared much about what you thought. They got their answers, and so they're on with their lives.
Yeah.
Well, I feel
And
like
I remember,
oh, I'm sorry. But I feel
I
like
was-
purity culture tells us to so we wait for them to ask us the question. We answer dutifully, and
yeah,
then all these adults
exactly.
failed you. And you were just
Yeah.
waiting for them to come rescue you and do the right thing. And it's not your job to solve this.
Yeah, and it doesn't take a lot, and I think I said this in one of my tweets recently. It doesn't take a lot to convince a scared 18-year-old to be quiet about sexual assaults she's experienced. Like that's pretty easy if you want to keep to intimidate. And all they had to do was not ask me questions, and I was very willing and would have told them everything. And even in that meeting with Wilson that my parents had, so we had first the meeting with Garfield and then the meeting with Wilson, where Wilson basically told my parents not to stress, it was all fine, nothing's happened. My parents brought me to that meeting because they assumed that someone would ask me questions and that they would that Wilson would want to talk to me, or that someone at the school would want to interview me and actually get to the bottom of what had happened. And that was not the case. I sat outside in the auditorium. They had their meeting and they finished their meeting, and Wilson walked by me, looked at me, kept walking, and it was just that she's the problem, and what an inconvenience. I wasn't, yeah, there was no attempt to try to get to the bottom of what was actually happening. It was a very willful ignorance. So Wilson can say that, oh, I didn't know that he was assaulting her. He should have known. He should have asked the question, because all he needed to do was ask the question.
I can't imagine he did not. He knows everything that happens at the church, at the school in Moscow. I cannot imagine he didn't know. It's like, I mean, it's impossible to think that he doesn't know, because he knows everything about whatever happens at any time of the day, anywhere in the city. He's got that place locked down. He's got his ears everywhere. He's got everything. So it's if he didn't know, it's incredible ignorance. And
It
as
was
a
a decision
pastor,
to be ignorant.
decision to be ignorant. And like you said, as a pastor, what outside of what the heck else are you supposed to be doing other than making sure people who are under your care are taken care of, and
Your
not
leadership.
and not given to these kinds of people.
Yeah.
So then they allowed Nance to go on to do more with education.
Yes.
So
So he went on and did the homeschool curriculum stuff and teaching students online. Also, he was at Logos every single day that final semester of my senior year. I don't think that's been mentioned enough. They made no effort whatsoever to create distance between Nance and myself and to protect me from
sorry,
Nance.
and just fill me in again real quick. How clear is it right now? So this man is on campus every day. How clear is it right now that he assaulted you, and they all know it?
Yeah, I think it's perfectly clear. I think it's very obvious
Yeah.
that that's what's taken place. They're choosing not to ask the details of those assaults. They're choosing not to actually find out.
He didn't kiss
but
you.
he didn't kiss me.
If they ask more questions, they'll be culpable for the information. They'll have to do something about that, potentially.
Exactly. And if they did ask questions, then they would have to report to police, and then it becomes a whole thing. And
And
then
they would
you
have
do
the
have
answers.
to.
They would have the answers they don't want.
Exactly. They didn't want the answers. So, and they told me to lie. That's Wilson's been saying, "Oh, Emily was covering it up. Emily lied." I was specifically told to lie. When when I was in that meeting with Tom Garfield said, if anyone asks you about this, lie. And Wilson explained, and I think I also put this in a tweet, he explained that there are some cases where it's appropriate to lie, like Corey Ten Boom lying about hiding Jews under
of
the
course, yeah. His little
so it's
deception narrative
okay.
thing, yeah.
It's okay to lie under certain circumstances. And this is one of those circumstances.
So they said this straight up direct to you.
Yes.
Corey
This is how it was. Yeah. Yeah. This was how it was
Oh.
presented to me. You are to lie about this. You are to hide this. You for the greater good, because you would be doing a moral wrong by speaking about this.
Because Nance is so important. I'm sorry to
Because
just.
Nance is so important. We're going to protect my institution from scrutiny. That's what it was. It was
Yeah.
we're lying for that's the greater good.
I
is
can't,
protecting.
Yeah.
I can't imagine
Yeah.
it's just Jim. I mean, if it were any teacher, because if this comes out on Doug's school, his church is going to be looked at. He's going to be looked at. All the teachers are going to be looked at. The curriculum is going to be looked at.
His
Anything
little buddy Garfield.
anything that they
Yes.
have touched will be looked at. And so I'd imagine any teacher, they would have somewhat of the same stuff, unless they have some escape plan or whatever it may be. But Jim is also a relatively prolific writer, like you said, with Doug on the homeschool curriculum, with the Logos stuff, with Omnibus, with a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, he's relatively prolific. And so if Jim goes down, it's kind of not a terrible, it's not a hard logical leap to think that people are going to start looking at Doug, and people are going to start looking at Logos, people are going to start
Well,
looking at Christ Church.
Have we told Emily about what we kind of discovered? Because I don't know if we've actually talked about this.
Go
So
for it.
so we knew when we talked to Aaron at first with the Wall Street Journal, we said, he had been asking who should I talk to, and we said
Yeah.
this case is
He was
really well
brand new to
documented.
the whole thing, and so he was asking us for the
Yeah.
basics.
Yeah. I was like, this case is really well documented, and it's just ridiculously heinous that this hasn't been investigated. And so I shockingly, or unsurprisingly, you probably are not surprised, but Christchurch pretty much picked up on that right away. They immediately started scrubbing. We just went backwards through, because we look really, really often at what Nance is on, and it was wild. You can see on the Internet Archives, they're just start scrubbing Nance off the internet.
Yep.
And
Social
so-
profiles, church pictures,
Yeah.
everything.
It was just, it's they know that they're tied together so hard. And so you got to protect that Logos, the ACCS, and
Yeah.
So they tell you to lie, and then Doug twists your lies into something else that it's not. That your lies mean that you're trying to covering up, even though he's
Yes.
the one who's trying. So what? How does all that stuff He's the one who's telling you that he and his administration are telling you to do this, and yet they're blaming you for doing this.
Yeah, exactly. And that they're putting their sins, to use that word, on me. And they're blaming, rather than taking accountability for their actions, they've chosen to blame the teenager in the situation for somehow orchestrating a massive cover-up of her own abuse. It's just not the way that works. And it's been fascinating to see that's the line they've gone with. It's also fascinating to see that the line they've gone with, they've never denied that the abuse took place,
No.
which I don't think they could effectively
couldn't.
deny that. But they've chosen to simply blame me, and that's been the response. And there's been comments of, oh, Emily was always a bit slutty. Oh, she was always a bit of a problem child. Oh, she was always rebellious. Oh, she's bitter. All of the words that they throw at women that aren't falling in line.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So another hard question, and sorry, all the hard questions are coming from me. But so after all of this, the timeline between your graduation and then when Nance reaches out to you again, I forget exactly what that timeline looked like, but if you can explain that, because that also is one that people just people stumble over, is why would she accept his request? Why would she even engage with him again? Because in people's minds who look at this very anti-Emily, pro-Doug, or pro-Jim, or pro-Christchurch, whatever, it's spun as, well, must have been consensual because he reached out and she accepted it later, years later. And if it wasn't consensual, why would she ever accept this?
Yeah, and this is something that I personally struggled with. I was like, well, why did I accept it? Well, I didn't want this. I had gotten away. I was leaving school. I was graduating. I think first, Nance came to my graduation ceremony. I remember being up, like accepting my diploma from Doug Wilson and looking out into the crowd and seeing Nance sitting there. He then came to the after party, the like graduation. Like we had our boards up with like our childhood photos and things. He came to that, and he was sitting at a table with Tom Garfield, and Garfield called me over and was like, "Hey, Emily, congratulations!" And then like Nance said, "Congratulations on your graduation," and like orchestrated a conversation between the two of us. So that was the first real interaction I'd had with Nance after, like, since everything had happened, that winter. And it was very much a case of, it felt like Tom Garfield being like, "You graduated, it's all good now." Like, a bit of that had happened. And I was curious as to how Nance was doing. I asked him, like, "Have you gotten a job?" Like, I didn't know what was going on with him. And I felt super guilty. Like, it was my fault. And that, like, his family wasn't going to, like, they weren't going to be able to, like, pay their bills. And it was all my fault. So I asked him a few questions, and he answered that. And then I, like, was like, "Okay, cool. I've gotten my closure. I'm walking away." Was going to school far away. Was like, "Great. I'm out of here." And it was that evening that Nance slid into my DMs again and was like, "Hi." And obviously, I regret responding, but looking back at where I was so alone through that entire last semester, my senior year. Not a single person came and spoke to me about what had happened. No one asked me if I was okay. I wasn't okay. I was struggling with my mental health, and it became once again this situation where the only person that cared to ask me or that knew what was going on with me was the person that was causing the harm in the first place. And so it was, the only comfort I could find was from the perpetrator. And he came back into my life and he provided that comfort, and he was once again, like, it just restarted. And I was naive. Like, I remember I've written down, I was going through some of my, like, I've been trying to gather some of the documents and like things that I've written down and that I've journaled over the years. And I found this one journal entry that describes him wanting to pray with me and like saying, like, "I want to pray for you," and like asking me to meet him. And I meet with him in like this park that's super secluded, and he prays with me. And then after he prays with me, he sexually assaults me. And like, I went into that, and I convinced myself that, oh, it's just praying for me. He's just being a good church elder. Like, I just believed it. And I kept believing that it would be different. And I kept believing that, yeah, it would change, and it never did. So that's kind of how I ended up once again back in the same place I'd been in before.
Yeah, and like you said, the way it comes across to me, and again, I wasn't the one who was assaulted or groomed or anything, so I'm not in your story nor feeling the same things. But I can imagine when he was doing some of the same things when he was assaulting you before, and then saying, "This is all your fault. You're in the wrong," and then however long it was after that, minutes, hours, whatever it may have been, "Hey, Emily, I forgive you. Jesus' blood covers your sins." So the only person you ever heard, quote unquote, like the good news or absolving was from him. And so when he reaches out, I can imagine there's something like, well, he's the only guy who, even though he's the one who did this to you, he's the only guy
Yeah.
who, quote unquote, like absolved you and forgave you, and nobody else did. Even though you're
Yeah.
not the one who needs to be forgiven, but you felt like you need to be forgiven because he convinced you that you need to be forgiven.
Yeah, exactly. And the church was very happy to take on that line later as well. That like I
Well,
need
I
to be
think
forgiven.
we
And
see
that was
that with a
pivotal.
lot of the cases, right? We see the absolution of these men is absolution, sorry, of these men is this marriage. So it's kind of sanctified. We've
Yeah,
seen with Sittler, he got married. They married him off to some poor young girl,
Yep.
and that
yeah,
sealed that deal. Like just it's just like this sandwich of okay, let's close this trauma. And I think with a lot of the women that I've worked with, including you, it was just this solution of, you could tell he was applying that same logic of, well, I'm going to absolve you and kind of
yeah.
still be a couple and then still have like made sanctified it as, you were still a couple afterwards. From the outside perspective, it just to me, like, I think, and I don't know where Jim was. It just looks like to me that he just was absolving himself of the responsibility of what he had done with you as a younger person
Yeah,
by
completely.
continuing it and just using you again. And
Yeah. What?
that's
I don't
horrifying.
know if even if I asked this before in our first recording. Why do you think he reached out to you that second time? Did he ever explain, like, why, like the distance in time between Lagos and you moving? Like,
Yeah.
what possessed him of like, I need to reach out to her again?
I mean, I assume so he could assault me again. Like he reached out to me like right as I was graduating, essentially the day I graduated.
Okay.
And then that summer he assaulted me multiple times. It wasn't until I went to uni and I got away and was able to get distance, and I avoided coming home in large part because I did not want to see him. I did not want to be assaulted by him. I, yeah, so that was why I, yeah, it was part of why I chose the distance was for that reason, was to get away from him. And that was the only way I knew how to get away from him. Yeah, so I think that was his motivation, was simply like he'd put in the work, he'd already groomed me, he'd already
Yeah.
gotten me pretty well under control and handled, and I hadn't had any opportunity really to heal, and no one had provided me any support. So I was just sitting there, a sitting duck where he'd left me, and he could just pick back up where he'd left off.
Yeah. I mean, the only person, not only, but you talked about this in your first recording when you and Nancy had your counseling sessions. You're like, oh, maybe the one female that I can talk to about some of this stuff. Maybe before I ask some of my last questions, and if you want to bring anything up, please do. But coming into it with Nancy expecting one thing and then getting something completely different from Nancy, and I'm assuming more shame placed upon you than help, resources, and distance from Jim Nance.
Yeah. And that was years later. So
Okay.
Nancy didn't offer counseling until 2017.
Oh, so this is 2 years after you graduated.
2 years after I graduated is finally when they were like, oh, we have to do something. And I don't think, I mean, it wasn't because they wanted to. I don't think that they really had much choice. They kind of got backed into a corner again. And I actually had someone reach out to me just recently after the Wall Street Journal article and say, I don't know if you knew this, but because I had told her, as like she was my friend at the time, I had told her about the abuse. Like I was breaking down when I came home for Christmas that year, in 2016. And during that period, some point in that weird limbo between Christmas and New Year's, I had told her what had happened with Nance, and she had then gone to the school and been like, "You need to call the police," and had really pushed it. And I did not know that until basically this week. So I don't think that this school like wanted to
No,
or would have had they not been forced to.
absolutely not.
I had then I had told Tom Garfield what had happened. Tom Garfield had reached out, like had basically reached out to me and was like, "Ah, how are you doing?" And then had said like, "Oh, that could have been really bad back in when you were a high school student,
Oh
but
my
we
gosh. Okay.
solved it." And me being like, "Excuse me, what?" Um, and told him that it was in fact very bad. And
Yeah.
so that's when they eventually went to police. And that's where the whole controversy over me not being entirely honest with the police comes up.
Yep, that was my second to last question was
Yeah, I was like, we have to get to that.
That
That's
was a real
important.
hard one.
yeah, that's and that's probably
Not
the
to
number
anyone
one
who
thing.
knows, though. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just that's
That's the number one thing we hear, and I can't say we hear it daily, but we hear it close to daily, and I'm assuming you hear it just as often as we do. You being the one that this happened to, and you being the one who talked to the police. So I'll ask it straight up again. This is people who are listening. I know sometimes the way I word questions could be confusing or strange, but I'm not trying to be trying to beat up on Emily. We talked about this beforehand. But why did you lie to the police about what happened? That's the thing that we hear. We've talked about this, so I know the reason. Sarah knows the reason, and it makes complete sense. But if you can describe, law enforcement's there to help you, and now people are like, okay, maybe there was something that was bad before, but like she lied to police, so she's trying to cover something up, and maybe she was trying to cover up like, oh, it wasn't actually as bad as it was. That like this was actually it goes back again and again and again to consensual. So yeah, why did Emilie Dye lie to the police?
Yeah, I was scared. Like that's simple as that. I was scared to death. I was terrified. I was young and dumb and scared, and I felt like it was my fault, and I felt culpable, and I didn't want my parents to know about it. It wasn't a good decision. I remember my friend calling me afterwards and being like, "Why would you do that?" And just being like, no, it's fine. It's all going to go away now. It's fine. Like, I didn't want the police involved. I just wanted to go away. And I had this very naive view that, like, okay, if I just don't admit it, if we can just keep hiding it, I can move on and this will all disappear. And I can protect Nance. I wanted to protect Nance, which is messed up and looking like, but I also think it's a pretty natural.
Yeah, but you're also told by him you're going to destroy his life if you go. And not even by him and everybody else at Logos, that you're going to destroy his life and his marriage and everything else. So it makes sense that, like, there's something to, like, yes, he did this to me. It was horrible, heinous, and everything else. But I don't want him to suffer for this, even though he's the one who did this to you.
Yeah, exactly. And so I wanted to protect him. I wanted to cover it up. I was ashamed. I was deeply, deeply ashamed of what had happened. And I, again, believed it was my fault and thought that if I admitted to it, then if I told people how bad it really was, then I'm going to be rejected from the community. I will be loathed. I felt that I was disgusting because of it.
That's also what you're told. I mean,
I was told, yeah. And
I imagine it's all throughout the curriculum and chapels and stuff that if something happens to you sexually, if you sleep with somebody else, if you give yourself away before marriage, that, like you said, you're spit in a cup, you're disgusting. And so if you tell anybody, regardless if this was your fault, that they're going to view that, like, that's all you've ever been told, that you'll be viewed. So why would you think any differently if you told people, hey, this happened to me, this wasn't my choice?
Yeah, it's like I would be worthless. And so I was running away and I was ashamed and I was scared. And I think that the police could have done a better job. As much as I don't want to, because they should have done a bit more due diligence, and they should have said, hey, can you come into the station? Can we talk to you in person? As opposed to a single phone call.
Okay, yeah, so they didn't even call you in.
No, it was just a call on the phone. I then proceeded to crash my sister's car, like, right after that, because I was just so distraught by it. Like, I was,
Yeah.
and I remember sneaking up. So I drove my sister's car to the top of the hill when the police called, so that I could, like, have the phone call in private, so that my parents couldn't hear, because I didn't want them to know.
Yeah.
And I was pretty naive in thinking that I could just deny and it would all disappear.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. It's, if you say to the police, which is the truth, that yes, this did happen to me, then an investigation opens up, witness opens up, testimony opens up, discovery I mean, there's a whole process. So even though that's what should have happened, that
Yeah.
I mean, from you, Emily, like what, when you look back at that time, like, does that sound like, yes, that's what I want? I want all of this stuff to blow up and have everybody looking
Yeah.
into this, or I'd rather this go away and never think about it ever again in my entire life.
Yeah, and I was at that time, I didn't have the support systems. I didn't have I wasn't in a space or in a headspace. I was very mentally unstable at that moment. And that's how I ended up telling people as much as I had about it, about the abuse.
I just
It,
can't believe the number of indicators you had that people were not going to support you. Not only were the police
yeah.
not going to support you, that adults had failed you all this time, authority figures, church figures.
Yeah.
So what would possibly make you open to trusting that your story is going to get told accurately? And I guess maybe that brings me to my question, which isn't a tough question, but how are you feeling? You know, you're front page of the Wall Street Journal, you're telling your story, you're taking ownership of this story. Um, how is that for you?
it's it's weird because it's like I don't want to be known for this, right?
Oh yeah,
Like
I can
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah, yeah.
I'm I'm known for like the worst moments in my life,
Mm.
and that sucks. Like
Yeah.
I do lots of other cool things.
You
I'm
did,
actually
yeah.
a really interesting and
You have a
fun
big
person
cat.
Yeah.
that does like I've got a great cat. I do some really interesting research.
You have a cool horse, and I've stalked your Facebook every
Um,
once in a while, but like
yeah,
I've seen your horse.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
ride horses every weekend. I
yeah.
write on like economic issues and intergenerational affairs, and like I'm working on a paper on misinformation at the moment. Like I'm doing really cool and interesting things in my normal professional life that
Yeah.
I would like to be known for that.
True.
And instead, I end up being chased by this thing in my past, and I've kind of recently come to the conclusion, come to the decision of no, I'm just going to confront it. It is what it is. Like I can't change it. I can't fix it. This is a part of my life. This is a part of my story. So I'm just going to own it. I'm just going to here it is. Take it. It is what it is, and I'm going to tell my story because I am in a really unique position. I think in some ways in that like I'm far away from Moscow. I'm not in the middle of it. I've healed from a lot of it. I found that writing has been writing it down and journaling has been incredibly helpful. Writing up those Medium posts was incredibly helpful, and so I'm in a position where I can talk about it. I'm not scared to get in front of a camera and talk to media. Where I mean, they don't prepare. I was chatting with a friend. They don't prepare like women for these circumstances. It's like there needs to be like a handbook for the recently raped or something.
Oh
So
my
it's
God.
like
Sorry for
here's sorry the dark
Oh my
here. But, like,
God.
here's how you handle your PR and your social media, and here's how you
Yeah,
how do
yeah.
you stand up for yourself, because you're not put in a position to stand up for yourself. And I think in a weird way I've got this skill set that I can speak. I've got the support networks. I'm far away, and I'm able, so I should, so that others don't have to. And I remember seeing other women do that. Here in Australia, there's Grace Tame, and she's very, very similar story to mine, of being sexually abused in high school and speaking out about that. And she's incredibly articulate. And I remember seeing her, she wrote her book, she's told her story, and I was like, man, I'm so glad that there's people like Grace Tame that go out there and that do that so that I don't have to. Unfortunately, I found that no, like it's things in Moscow and things with Christchurch haven't changed. So I do have to. I do have to say something because, I mean, that's not to put that on other victim
Of
survivors.
course,
They don't
those who are
know
ready
who,
for it and those who, like you, have come to that conclusion. That's
yeah,
their conclusion to come to, not to be told that this is what they need to
exactly.
do.
Yeah, I'm able to, and I can, and I want to, and I think
Well,
not
we're
a
so
lot of people
grateful
need
for
to heal
that.
first. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So my not like really last question, but just kind of a general thing around all this, and then anything that you want to add to this, Emily, please do add anything that you would like. But for those like Wall Street Journal, small outlets, big outlets, everything in between, and you having come from media training, having been a journalist and been in front of a camera, if you can talk to, and I'm not just saying Aaron or Wall Street Journal in particular, but just kind of the enterprise about abuse, about Christchurch, about Doug Wilson, how, from your perspective, they should be approaching these kinds of stories, or approaching Doug, or approaching Christian nationalism, approaching like kind of the whole we get contacted, and just back up, we get contacted about Christian nationalism. People only want to talk about Christian nationalism, and just the headline of this crazy pastor and Christian nationalism, and he's in Trump's hands, which is true, but it's like there's more beyond that. So I'm curious from your side, having been through this and media trained and having talked to Wall Street, what would you tell those who are listening, especially from the media side, like, hey, maybe start asking these questions, or maybe start pursuing these angles? What would you say to those, like, Wall Street or anybody else like them?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think first, there's no such thing as a perfect victim survivor. Like, I'm not going to have dealt with it perfectly, and there's many places where, like, older and wiser, I'm like, man, why didn't younger Emily do that? Like, why did I delete the text messages when Nance told me to delete the text messages? Why was I hiding it? Why was I protecting him? And the criticism of myself, I think it's helpful for people that are approaching the story to understand that there is a lot of nuance, and that particularly when trauma is involved, survivors make really terrible witnesses, and because of trauma, because of the way it affects us, and the fear and how deeply seated that is. And so acknowledging that it's not clean in the way that I think a lot of stories are. And then second, that this is kind of the end result of this theology and this worldview that does put men so much at the center, and which treats women as less than human in many ways. I think the comments that Wilson made about women being the kind of people that people come from, when you view women as being less than human, as not being fully their own autonomous human beings, then crimes against women and girls are less bad. Like, it's not as they're not taking it as seriously. They view the greater crime to be me destroying a man's career, or me calling out and demanding scrutiny of their mission, which makes it very inconvenient for them, and they view the ends as absolving them of all of the means and all of the collateral damage that happens as a result of that theology. I also think it's important to note that I don't think that the only crime and the only problem is the fact that Wilson's covered up the abuse. I think that this worldview and this training that is instilled on young girls from a very young age, it creates the abuse. It prepares. They're offering up these victims to be abused. When you're told you're going to need to submit to your husband, and you end up in a marriage where your husband is beating you. Like, this has happened in Christchurch. There's many women that have gone through this, and of course, because that's what they're told. They're told that they need to submit. When young girls are told that if their hemline on their skirt is too short, they're causing their Christian brothers to stumble. They're absolving the young men of any sort of responsibility to treat women with respect, and instead putting all of the onus on these young girls. And so when a young girl is assaulted, she thinks it's her fault, and she's scared, and she doesn't come forward, and she doesn't approach in the way that would be ideal and would be in her best interest. Because of that teaching. So I think it's important to understand that it's not just what happened after, but it's what's led up to this, and that this theology creates abuse.
Yeah, that's exactly what Sarah and I have been telling people. We're trying to get more people to do this. Same as what Wall Street Journal has done. We're very, very, very thankful for that. And we do hope more start doing these kinds of journalistic articles and asking harder questions and asking deeper questions and asking questions not just of Wilson, but those whom Wilson is either hurt or covered up or, like you said, groomed. Even if it wasn't
Yeah.
him, those whom he's trained himself.
Yeah, and I think people are confused as to why I've gone after Wilson so
Yep.
much and not just Nance.
Yep.
And this is super controversial, and people, I don't know how to say this lightly, but in some ways, those who cover up abuse are worse than the abusers themselves because they're creating an environment for more abuse, and they're offering up more young girls to be assaulted and to have this trauma laid on them. And they're also robbing me of justice. Like, I don't get that closure of having gotten justice directly because of the actions of Wilson. And that's something that I've had to come to terms with and had to become okay with, in that I will never get to see Nance behind bars. And that is a result of this community and the approach of this community to abuse.
Yeah. Yeah. So anything else you'd like to add, Emily? Any nuggets, any parting words? How does Emily want this time to end?
Well, I'm really glad to see these stories getting out there, and the platforms and what you guys have done, and seeing this podcast do so well is exciting, because I mean, exciting and important, because it is protecting. I think it is protecting future young girls and future children that could be finding themselves in these schools, because it's educating parents, and it's, at least people aren't going into it blind, where I think my parents did go into it blind. I think a lot of other parents now know the risks they're taking, and hopefully there are lots of people that are saying, actually, no, I want to keep my children very far away from these schools, and I actually don't want to start engaging with this theology. As shiny as it seems on the outside, it's really nasty on the inside.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sarah,
Well,
anything
Emily,
else?
thank you so much. I'm always grateful to talk with you. I think it was hard for me at first. Like, I think we talked about that first meeting was like, I think for me that was realizing that something was really wrong that happened deeper for me. But talking
Yeah.
to you has been truly, I talked to so many people, but your story has been so inspirational, and your bravery has been so inspirational, and your eloquence. And I mean, it's constant. Like, they go after you, and you don't take it.
Well, you do
So
take it.
grateful
that you
You,
took
you shovel it back.
Yeah,
they
it
can
was so
keep
grateful
coming
you took the
after me as
time.
much as they want. Have at me. Like, I'm not gonna bend.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's-
So
I
grateful
think-
for you.
Yeah, that gives a lot of other people that we talk to, survivors and even non-survivors, those who are just interested in this movement and its tentacles and stuff. The people, and this is not to discount any other survivor stories ever. It's just the ones that have been more public tend to get the more attention. But it's been Angel stories and your story that have been, I think, helpful for people to say, like, hey, there's more stuff going on here than just weird theology that I go into pretty in depth. But it also does give people language for, like, oh, maybe this is something that I have been through myself, and if she can come forward, maybe I can come forward too.
Yeah, and Angel's amazing, and
Yep.
her story is almost it's so rough. And like, they did go to the police, they did go through the trial, they went
yeah.
through that whole process, and she still didn't get a good result, and she has
Yeah.
still been demonized and attacked. And I don't think there's anybody that's been attacked like more or
Not even
more
close.
viciously
No.
than Angel.
No.
Like, I look at her, I don't know how she keeps, like, she's so tough.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tough.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
all the survivors have been. It's been amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Emily.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, Sarah. This is Sarah's first like kind of hosting opportunity with me. We're gonna do more of these live things soon. And also thank you, Emily, for being willing and open to talk to Aaron at Wall Street. And it could be, like you said, scary to have that to be what you're known for, but it's pretty impressive that you're like, hey, I'm just gonna press into it, even though it's not something I'm super excited to continue talking about. But it is pretty bold and courageous from you, and we are very, very, very thankful for for you coming forward. If you don't go forward, Sons of Patriarchy has me to talk about theology, which is not the interesting thing.
Sorry,
Still
this is
important,
Yes,
though.
yes.
I
Very
guess
important.
important.
Because
Yeah,
it's the theology that's created it.
this is
Yeah.
that's true. But we're very thankful, and the hope is wherever Wilson goes, these stories go, and he can't get away from it. And
Yeah.
we will do, and I know you will do whatever it takes to make sure within the confines of the law. I won't
We'll
say
still be
whatever.
here.
Yeah.
I mean, if they want to sue me for defamation, they can have at it.
That's
I
what
would
I will
love
say
to
that
get
out
up
loud.
and swear
Like,
an oath.
Discovery.
Go for it. Please
Yeah,
sue
feel
one of
free.
us. And we will just open up the coffers. Like, you really want to go down this route? We'll go down this route with you.
Yeah, I will happily stand in front of a judge. I will swear an oath, and I will tell this story under oath.
Yep. We got the files, and I know you have the files too. So there's not much to hide from.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure talking to you again. And if people want to go to the show notes to find the article, the one that I linked to in the article I linked to in the show notes is the free version. So if you go to Wall Street Journal, you're gonna get the paid version, but we have the free version through the show notes. And then go to Emily's first episode, Groomed, to submit Abuse in the CRAC Part 2 if you want kind of a guided path through everything. This one being more we'll say frequently asked questions about Emilie Dye. And the first one being what happened to Emilie Dye. So you can think of it as Part 1 and Part 2.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Emily. Appreciate it.
Thank you.